Tottenham just signed a manager that has only 3 years of professional coaching experience in Europe at any point in his career. But Ange Postecoglou is a lot more than the Australian Ted Lasso. He's a wild man whose infamous argument with a TV presenter nearly ended his career like 17 years ago. He goes to clubs in far-flung places, sells scores of players at those clubs, and succeeds anyways. He's also responsible for Australia's only Asian Cup. But before Big Ange took the managerial seat, he was actually a pretty good player. Born in Athens in 1965, the future Aussie immigrated to Melbourne at the age of 4. By the age of 9, he was playing for South Melbourne Hellas, a club in his area which was named after the large Greek population in it. He was a one-club man, eventually making it into the first team as a left-back in 1984. He would eventually play under Ferenc Puskás. Yes, that Ferenc Puskás, who was managing South Melbourne Hellas. He went on to win 2 National Soccer League titles. He also made 4 appearances for the Australian national team, which of course he would go on to coach later in his career, and he was named to the team of the century for South Melbourne FC at left back. But obviously he's not playing for Tottenham, he's managing them. So how did he get to a point where he was considered good enough to do that? Well, it's probably because he used Manscaped. And when we talk about Manscaped, we will be showing you no context spoilers for the rest of this video. If you can guess them all, let me know in the comments because I have no idea how you did that. As for Manscaped, the longtime sponsor of this channel, they want to let you know that it is smooth summer. And they've got a great deal for you, 20% off and free shipping with the link in the description. But what do you get? What can you get? What should you get? Well, that would be the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. That is the only reason that I am not entirely covered in hair from head to toe. There's the Lawnmower 4.0 for the pelotas. It reduces grooming accidents with skin-safe technology and has a beautiful ceramic blade. It even has an LED spotlight to help light up your world. It also comes with ball deodorant to stay cool in that summer heat, and wonderful Manscaped boxers. It even has a nail kit in it. And you can get all of that and a whole lot more with 20% off and free shipping with the link at the top of the description. And we do appreciate Manscaped for sponsoring this channel for a long time. It's smooth summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind. Ha! Well, good luck figuring out those no-context teasers, too. I made some of them brutally hard. Now, Ange started managing just after his playing career, and 3 years after he retired, he worked his way up to the full managerial position at South Melbourne FC. And while they didn't win the NSL in his first season in charge, they did win the NSL in his next 2 seasons in charge. This guy was a regular old Will Still. You see, here they finished second, but it's actually contested in a playoff, because this is one of those soccering countries. Could never be me, though. And after those championships, they won the 1999 Oceania Club Championship, which sent them to the 2000 FIFA Club World Championship. And Ange Postecoglou was there in the same group as Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United. South Melbourne played them and lost 2-0, but if you want to chirp Manchester United in the 2000 Club World Championship, they finished 3rd in the group, just 4 points clear of South Melbourne. So Ange Postecoglou has managed against Alex Ferguson, but then he did something that he's going to do a lot over the course of this story that makes him so interesting. He resigned. After a very successful spell managing in the top Australian league, he resigned to take a post with the Australian youth national team setup and manage the U17s. He made it to 3 consecutive U17 World Cups with the team, including the quarterfinals in 2001, which Australia has never been able to get that far since. This got him promoted to managing the Australian U20 national team, but then Big Ange's magic touch finally faded. This was in 2006 at the U19 Asian Championships, and Australia struggled. They won their first 2 games, but they lost to China. So they finished second in the group and matched up with South Korea in the quarterfinals, and they had to win that game to make it to the U20 World Cup. They didn't. They lost 2-1, causing Australia's U20 team to miss the Under-20 World Cup for the first time since 1989. It was a huge egg on the face moment for Postecoglou, and the stinging irony is he actually got to play in the U20 World Cup in 1985. He played against the Soviet Union. They drew 0-0. He actually played all 3 matches here, according to this Wayback Machine page. Got a yellow card. Ange then went on the show The World Game to talk about the team's failure to qualify for the U20 World Cup in 2007. And things did not go well with host Craig Foster.
I mean, you can't just point to the players. You've got to take responsibility yourself, don't you?
If you're going to be critical of me, and that's fine. I'm in a game where you're going to be critical. Get it right. So, Fozzie, your assumption is that I should resign. Is that right?
I think you are paid to qualify the team.
But you're saying I should resign.
Yeah, I think you should put your hand up and say,
yep,
in the last 2 qualification campaigns, I've failed and I'm paid to do it.
Is there any other questions, or is that it? Is that your whole medical analysis of it?
Well, are you going to?
You're going to keep on. Look, and to be honest,
well,
what's the point of this interview? Hold on a sec, because I can hear somebody about to butt in again, and I'm not. Matt, oh, you're enjoying it, are you? So you're being smart as well. Well, that's the problem though, isn't it?
Ange objectively puts his foot in his mouth here. He kind of blames his players. He doesn't come off looking good. He looks lost. He looks combative. It's just terrible on television. 2 weeks after the interview, Ange Postecoglou was fired by the Australian setup, and his career looked kinda cooked. Postecoglou told the BBC that interview he felt made him unemployable. He was very objective about it. He jumped over to Greece to manage in the 3rd division there for a little while, and then came back home to Australia to manage the Whittlesea Zebras in the lower divisions, a club whose Wikipedia page is more preoccupied with their name changes during that time period than anything Ange was able to do. He worked as a pundit on Fox Sports. He ran coaching clinics in the city. He did washed up retired coach things. But eventually, his record in the National Soccer League got him another shot. Still just 44, he was hired by the Brisbane Roar, and they played in the A-League, which at this time had been the new top league in Australia for the last 3 years. And it was time for Big Ange to cook, but it wouldn't be easy. This article from 2009, when he was hired, highlights the club's desire to move on quickly from the controversy of Farina's departure. Well, who's Farina? Well, that would be Frank Farina, who was fired from his job of manager after getting charged for drunk driving on his way to training. Yes, that sentence was right. But it was here, in a perennially underachieving club, under enormous pressure to prove himself after years out of the top level of the game, that Ange Postecoglou started to show why he would be the right man for Tottenham. Because he made the tough decisions. Just like I do on my Twitch stream, link in the description. I'm in crippling debt and might go into administration, or will win the Champions League, glory or death. This article from 2010 by The World Game highlights the amount of business that Ange did. He showed his conviction. He told The World Game, I think it needs a certain type of football to play the high-tempo game we are playing now. By the end of the season, Brisbane Roar had gone from second to last the previous year to top of the frickin' league, and they rounded out their performance by winning the playoffs. They won what is called the Finals Series in Australia. 50,000 people watched the Brisbane Roar beat Central Coast Mariners in a penalty shootout for the title. And it wasn't just that they won both the league and the Finals Series, it was how they did it. Brisbane Roar lost 1 game all year. It was his first full season in charge. Carrying over from the season before, they actually broke the Australian record for most consecutive matches unbeaten with 36. The following season, Brisbane Roar finished second but won the Finals Series again, giving Ange Postecoglou 4 Australian championships and making him the most successful domestic manager in Australia ever. But then, as he does, he left, seeking a new challenge. He signed for 3 years with Melbourne Victory, also in the A-League, and in his first season, finished 3rd in the league, 2 spots above Brisbane Roar, the team he just led to consecutive championships. He followed the same mantra, releasing core players, bringing in new ones that fit his system, and then winning. And how does he win so quickly? Well, for that, we turn to Australian defender Ryan McGowan. It's his way or the highway. There's no in between. Unless you buy into it, you'll be out the door. And a lot of people are usually out the door. But after his great performance with Melbourne Victory, Australia had seen enough, and the senior national team came calling for Ange Postecoglou. It was an old team that needed to be cleaned out from a 2006 golden generation that had hung around too long. But despite having less than a year in the run-up, Ange Postecoglou got the boys pointed in the right direction in time for the 2014 World Cup. You might not remember it, but Australia was in the same group as the Netherlands and Spain from that famous game, and Chile was also there. And while Australia lost all 3 games, there was a general consensus in the media that Ange Postecoglou had gotten the most out of the team. There was a belief that Australia could compete with the world's best. I mean, they led against that Dutch team, the same Dutch team that beat Spain 5-1. But after the World Cup, things started to slip. Australia lost a few matches and dropped all the way to 102nd in the world, which is their lowest ever ranking. But this is Ange Postecoglou we're talking about. He's only 8 years away at this point from managing one of the biggest clubs in the Premier League, so you know what's coming. It was time for the 2015 Asian Cup, and Australia was the host. For those that don't know, this is the Euros of Asia. It's the biggest prize on the continent, and it's been dominated traditionally by Japan and Saudi Arabia. Australia had never won it. They got to the final in 2011 with that golden generation, but couldn't bring home the goods. Australia won its first 2 games, but then lost to South Korea 1-0 in the group stage, finishing second and getting a bit of a harder draw as a result. A second-half brace from Tim Cahill powered them through China in the quarterfinal, then 2 early goals helped them brush aside an upstart UAE team in the semifinal. This set the stage for a dramatic rematch against South Korea, who was looking for its first Asian Cup win since 1960. They are desperate to get back on top of the Asian game. But in front of 76,000 fans in Stadium Australia, the Aussies took the lead. But that's not before before Son Heung-min tied it in the 91st minute, an excruciating concession that sent it to extra time. But then in one of the most bizarre plays you may ever see, the constantly pressing Australians got a loose ball in the box that bounced right to James Tracy, who, of course, put the ball in the back of the net, and not only did he get a goal, he got the whole Asian Cup for Australia. It was the crowning achievement for Ange Postecoglou, wiping away a year of pain and losses at the World Cup. The win took Australia to the Confed Cup, which of course doesn't exist anymore, but Australia ripped off a very respectable 2 draws before exiting in the group. Then he guided Australia through World Cup qualifying again and made it to the 2018 World Cup. But he wouldn't be attending, because as Ange does, he moved on. And there might have been a reason for that. It's hinted at in this BBC article. A former Australia player said he's definitely not a yes man. He wasn't happy with some decisions taken above him, so he walked away. He's obviously a manager that likes to control his surroundings, but where would his next act be? Japan, actually. Probably wasn't your first guess. Yep, he went to the Yokohama Marinos, who are actually part owned by the City Group, like the Manchester City Group. His first year, he flirted with relegation in the J-League, actually avoiding the relegation playoff on goal difference. But my goodness, was this team awesome. Since when does a team that survives the relegation playoff battle on goal difference finish second most goals in the league? This team scored 56 goals in 34 matches. The problem is they also conceded 56, but you know, it's still fun. But as is always the case with Ange, the signs of the turnaround were there. Despite their poor league form, they made the final of the J-League Cup and only lost by 1 goal to Shonan. At this point, the Greek national team, yes, the former European champions, started to sniff around Ange Postecoglou, maybe even offered him a contract. But his job wasn't finished yet. He still had that itch to scratch, so he re-signed with Yokohama. And you know where this is going. The next year, he won the league. They tightened up their defense, scored 12 more goals than they did the year before, and just dominated. He continued to engineer successful seasons, and in 2021, he had Yokohama Marinos in second place when he got an unexpected phone call. It was Celtic, the 9-time consecutive Scottish champions, that had just been bumped from that pedestal by the dreaded Rangers. Now, if you don't know Scottish ball, that is a Category 5 level hurricane disaster for Celtic. And who did they call to fix it? But maybe the best manager in Japan. Understandably, Celtic didn't take kindly to his introduction. There were a lot of funny reactions to his hiring, but maybe none beat the pundit Alan Brazil's reaction. He's a noted Celtic fan and also a noted baby. I mean that in the best way possible. That is a stunning resemblance. He said specifically, "Is this a wind-up? Breaking news from Scotland and Celtic have applied for an exemption with UEFA for Yokohama Marinos boss and he said that's verbatim, Postecoglou to manage in Europe. He does not hold the required UEFA Pro license. Oh, this has got to be a wind-up. He'll be a great manager." Where do they come up with these guys? But again, it's Big Ange. You know where this is going. The article that quote is pulled from is titled, "Alan Brazil offers Ange Postecoglou an on-air apology." But Ange Postecoglou was aware he was not the favored choice for the job. He told Sky Sports, "Let's not beat about the bush. I was a joke when I was appointed." But how does that video go?
You all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
Postecoglou was, after all, the first Australian to manage a major European club. And the doubters only grew when he got bumped from Champions League qualifying by Danish side Midtjylland and lost his opening match with Celtic to Hearts of Midlothian 2-1. But then he did what Ange does. He got his players. He made 29 signings in his time at Celtic. That was only from 2021 to right now. And he tapped into his world knowledge and trusted it. He signed 6 players from Japan, where he had been managing for the last couple years. And once he had his guys together, he won the league in his first year, finishing 4 points ahead of Rangers and only losing 2 more matches after that Hearts debacle for the rest of the year. Well, in the league anyways. But he wouldn't do a whole lot of losing at all the following season, because the year after, he won the treble with Celtic. The guy showed up when the club was in disarray and had finally lost the league to its rival, and then produced a 2-year run where he won 5 of the 6 available trophies in Scotland over those 2 years. I mean, this past year, they won 32 of the 38 matches they played. They scored 114 goals in 38 games. But as is probably very predictable for you by now, at that point, it was time for Ange to move on. And who came calling but Tottenham Hotspur? And again, he knows he has to prove himself, of course. He told Sky Sports, "You're assuming I was second choice. I might have been 5th choice. You never know. It doesn't really bother me. What's important is that I have been given the responsibility and opportunity." And as you now know, the prospect of rebuilding Tottenham into a competitive team doesn't faze Ange Postecoglou. It's basically all he does. He told Sky Sports, "Just about every job I have had has been an extensive rebuild. Usually you come in when people are needing change. Secondly, the way I get my teams to play is challenging and requires a major shift, usually both in playing staff and the way we work." Now, while Tottenham might have preferred a coach from Championship Feyenoord or from Bayern, what they did get is a coach that had the determination to go from laughingstock to unquestionably the most successful coach in Australian history. He has his style, tireless attacking, sprinkle in some inverted wingbacks, that classic Australian wit, and the toughness to overcome doubt, and Ange might just have what it takes to make fools out of yet another fan base and bring Tottenham that elusive trophy after all. If you want to read more, there are great articles from Sky Sports, BBC, and The Athletic we used as part of our research for this video. Everything we used to research this video is linked in the description. Do check it out, and if you enjoyed the research in this video and how my AC is off and I'm covered in sweat trying to put this together for you, then please do subscribe. We'd appreciate it. But oh, you don't need to move a muscle either, because if you want to keep binge watching, I've got a video for you about the German version of Luton Town. They did basically the exact same thing, and they also had like their Aguero moment at the same time. This is very cool.